In today's video, I'm gonna build a 3D printed mic arm and then see how it compares to the Elgato low profile arm, which is a similar design but has a retail price of $100. But before I can do any of that, I need to take all of these 3D printed parts and figure out how they go together. This is not my original design, it's one that I kept seeing pop up on Maker World. And I have the Elgato low profile arm, which has been around for several years at this point, and people generally like it. It's a well-regarded mic arm. And this design seems heavily inspired by the Elgato. So I wanted to see, is this a gimmick or can you actually 3D print a useful mic arm, which doesn't just hold a mic one time. The thing about mic arms is they move around a lot. There's tons of wear and tear. You're loosening and tightening things. Microphones themselves can be pretty heavy. The way that you mount the microphones are different. Do they have a shock mount? So let's see how this design stacks up. In the instructions for this mic arm, it does actually point out that you can replace some of the 3D printed parts with metal and more traditional stuff, like especially nuts and bolts. But for the fun of it, I wanted to entirely 3D print this. And I also 3D printed everything over here, which is the desk clamp. The basic design is actually intended to work with some monitor arms. So you might be able to use this with something you already have that's probably pretty strong because it's made out of metal. But again, I wanted to go totally 3D printed. So I printed the desk clamp as well. The only non 3D printed parts I'm including are these magnets. Basically, just like the Elgato, you run your cable through here and there's these magnetic covers. This is all metal, so it's pretty easy. It's a similar thing here. You can run your cables through here and then a magnetic clip will hold that part in place. I put these magnets on this one just as kind of a test and it worked pretty well, and we'll need to put the magnets in the other ones. And if you're interested, like I was, in the practicality of this, before even putting it together, you kind of have to figure out, is it even worth it? So this entire thing with the mic arm and the desk clamp, I was able to do with a total of 18 plates. 18, not prints, but plates of prints. The default design does include several parts that are on separate build plates. So for small pieces like this, instead of one print, two prints, I just put them together on a single build plate and then printed them as one thing. So that saved a few build plates. I printed everything on my Bamboo Lab P2S, and this is all ABS except for these covers here are PLA. I'll explain why in a bit. And then these little bits for the desk clamp are TPU because they need to be a little bit softer. Everything else is ABS. This is the biggest ABS project I've ever done so far. And I actually did have some issues with bed adhesion using the standard build plate that comes with the P2S. And so I switched to the BQ Cryo Grip, the blue build plate, and that one had no issues with adhesion. Everything stuck to it really, really well. The only downside to that build plate is I don't like the texture. So you can kind of see on the bottom of these main parts here, this is sort of what the texture looks like. It's fine. If you look at the texture of the normal PEI build plate that comes with the Bamboo, I love this. This like does not look or feel 3D printed. So for the parts of the print, these covers that are very visible and everybody's kind of seeing them, I printed these in PLA. So I could easily use that other build plate and then they would look really nice. So all in all, like I said, this was 18 build plates, 18 prints. In total, it took me 37 hours and 23 minutes to print all of this. It used 739 grams of filament, which came out to about $16.98. So we'll round that up to $17 worth of filament, roughly 2/3 of a roll-ish of the ABS that I got. So that's a lot of time. It's almost 40 hours, almost a full-time work week, but only $17. This one is $100. So the 3D printed mic arm is $83 cheaper. That's pretty good, right? If you're gonna get an 83% discount on something, why not go for that? And if you wanna look at it in terms of practicality, even though this did take a long time to print over multiple days, I didn't have to go anywhere to get it. It didn't have to have any packing materials. I didn't have to order it and have it shipped and delivered. And, you know, I didn't have to use any of those kinds of resources to get it. It just magically appeared in my printer when the parts were done. This is the low profile mic arm with cable management from SLA Studio. Actually, I'll give them a boost because even if it doesn't work, this was actually like really fun. And, oh, I boosted them twice. Well, good for them. I don't really know what that even does. There are some directions here for assembling the arm itself, but there's not a lot for the desk clamp. And that's what we're going to start with because I'm desperate to have a place to clamp this thing. And obviously, I have other mic arms, so in terms of frame of reference, I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult. Does this go... Ah! There are a lot of really smart things like this screw here. Instead of trying to make this round, it goes into like a hex thing, and now we have everything kind of fits in really well. But I'm going to use a bit of glue on a lot of these to make sure that they actually stick together once I know that they're in the right spot. So we have the main clamp piece here, and then we have these two long rods. One of them is like a hex shape and one of them is round, but inside the round one, there is a hex shape. So the way I think this works is this goes into the clamp thingy. Now this is the clamp that goes on your desk or your table. One of my things that I always look for with real mic arms is that there's some sort of padding or rubber so they don't, especially on like a wood top like this, they're not putting marks into it and denting it, or if you're using a glass or another material, it's not scratching it or messing it up. So that's why I printed those parts in TPU. This is just the TPU for AMS, so it's not crazy soft, but it should be soft enough to not scratch the table and stuff. You gotta see it's the exact right size here. So that goes there, and then this one will go here. Boy. And then these are the parts that are actually touching the table. I can glue this one here because I know this one fits. Okay. And then this one looks like it actually just screws onto here. Oh, it does. There we go. Look at that. All right. Next, we're going to take this hex thing and put it in here. I'm actually really impressed so far, at least, knock on wood, how well the threads and the screws fit together. I don't know if it's an ABS thing, but it seems better than in the past. So this is sturdy. And then this slips over this and has to kind of wedge its way into here somehow. There we go. Look at that. That's like a legit part. I'm going to leave this here and let all the glue kind of set and dry and move on to the actual mic arm. That was easy. That took, as long as you saw me putting it together, that's how long that took. That was easy. This part we're gonna see. So we'll start here, which is the part that gets clamped to the pole I just made. So I need this part along with one of the screws and one of the nuts. And I actually really like the design of these nuts and bolts, because if I were designing this with my limited to non-existent design skills, my impulse would be you design a bolt or a screw and then you print it like that. So that way it's round. But if you look at these, they are not round. They're like half finished. And that's because they print on the build plate basically like that, lying down. So it's almost like you're printing half screws, but when you thread it through the nut, even though it's not a fully round screw, it still fits and goes through just fine. So that's actually like a really cool design. I think I'm missing a part. The way that this works is the arm itself goes down on this post, but there's no way built in here to secure it, which I'm sure they thought about this. So the way that you're supposed to do it is there's actually supposed to be a little bracket that goes below this. You lock that down, it wraps around here, you clamp that down, and then the arm basically just rests on top of that. For some reason, they didn't print that part. So I need to go print that part and then assemble the rest of this. That's so weird. So it is this clamp right here. That's what I need to do. And I'm gonna print that in ABS and confirm. Start the print. So it says that's about 50 minutes. Maybe by the time I have everything else done, I'll be ready for that. This is the bottom arm. We actually already have our magnets installed, so that works. And this goes into this. This is how we attach the two things together. Okay. It goes here. Oh, is that what this is for? Oh my gosh. What? Oh, okay. This is why I boosted this print twice. I didn't know what these parts were. They feel really good and they look really nice. I kind of thought they were going to be handles or something. These are tools. It's like IKEA. It gives you the tools that you need. So I can put a bolt in there. I can then reach in this awkward spot And look at that, it fits right in there, and that's how I can thread that on there. Oh man, I guess there's probably no way to, since it's plastic, there's no way to like lock it down so it can't move. So even if I tighten these screws, I can still move this, which is what I want, because this part is this hinge right here. Actually, wow, it kind of looks the same. There's no way this arm was not the inspiration for this one here. That doesn't feel as slick of a fit as I would have hoped, but there we go. All right, all right. Are these caps? Do they go here? Is that what that is? These parts? No. Oh yeah, now I can put one of these on either side, tighten it up. All right. So size-wise, the arm part is actually a little bit, it's very similar in size to the Elgato, and probably once the mouth's there, it's going to be real close. Now this is the trickiest part. This is something even the pro mic arms always struggle with, which is how do you actually attach the microphone? The Elgato has this ball mount that you kind of loosen and tighten, which is good for positioning things everywhere, although sometimes it's a little bit weak. And then it has a 1/4-20 mount, and you can put adapters to go all the way up to 5/8 for standard microphones. This has you print a 3/8 mount and also a 5/8. This is the part where, especially if you change microphones often, like I do, because I have a lot of microphones, I have a feeling this plastic bit is going to wear out kind of quickly. I think that's kind of the main assembly. The part that I'm seeing that might not be ideal, which is something I do complain about a lot, is this, the part where you attach your mic is only pointing in one direction. So the reason that's a problem, if I have a mic arm like this, see it's coming off from the side here, and say I want to position the mic towards me, because this has a ball mount that can go in any direction, I can position the mic in any direction. If this is only pointing straight, then I have to somehow like position it where it's going in that direction, and it doesn't always work with certain desk setups or certain microphones that have to be in shock mounts. So the print does recommend using 2x4mm magnets like I mentioned earlier, but these came with all the magnets and then this long piece here, and so I've been using this to kind of like hammer them into the prints. And the other thing is to just make sure that the magnets are facing the right direction so that like this doesn't end up just hovering over the mic arm because they're repelling each other, although that could be a cool design. So you want to make sure it does that and it snaps together. The way that I did that was to just start, actually, let's make sure it matches, so that way I can interchange these pieces if I need to. So essentially when the magnet is on this little like tool, you want it to be repelling this, even though we want it to snap down in here, because I'm going to take this part, the opposite side, and put it in here, and then the attractive side will be facing out, just like I try to do with myself every day. So then basically I found that in this PLA thing here, friction fit works. And let's make sure that works. Yes, okay. So that's the correct orientation. And now we just have to do that 5 more times. That should be it, which means this should just click in here. Nice. I'm really glad that I took the time to make sure the magnets are oriented the same way here as they will be here, so that way I can interchange these. You don't want to have like, if they're opposite, then that means only this one would go here and only this one would go here, and that could just be kind of a pain. And so that friction fit actually looks pretty good and works really well overall there. All right, I think the best thing to do would be actually to take this off. Should have put the magnets in before I put the arm together. So now it's the same thing. I'm just putting the magnet so that it repels on here, and then that's the side we're gonna sink into the print. That is 6 magnets, 6 times 4, that's 24 of these little magnets. And I think this was a 200 pack for $9. So whatever minimal cost that adds to the side, to the arm, probably still safe to say it's about $17. Now, since I took this apart and have to put it back on, like, is the screw stripped? Can you reuse it like this? Let's find out. So because of how the supports were on this piece here, it wasn't moving well in this. and I just kind of filed some of that down. So hopefully it moves a little bit better, because we want this kind of motion. The clamp that I'm printing is about 30% right now, but I can still do kind of like a dry run here. So we can clamp this to the desk. Then we fit this over here. Whatever, that's good enough for now. That's basically our arm, and then we pop our covers on here. I did mine in blue. Obviously, you can make it whatever color you want. I don't know what these pieces are that I have 2 of. And this, I believe, is a locking nut intended to go on here. So this mic has a pretty simple mount. It's just built in right here. And we'll see how this works. It's not really gripping in there. And it's a little saggy laggy there. Okay. This is what I expected. This one looks like it has a cleaner thread, so maybe it'd actually be smarter to just use an adapter, the 3/8 with an adapter. So here's the printed part, and then I have a 3/8 to 5/8 adapter, and that should just be able to go on there. This is probably the smarter way to go, because now I have metal here that aren't going to strip. This didn't even last for a single mount of the microphone. Now, we should have no problem mounting the microphones because we have a little metal mount. That's probably a spot that's worth not 3D printing. Okay, the mic is mounted, no problem, but there's our other problem that I was sort of anticipating. So let's see, how tight can we make these? This isn't even the heaviest microphone in the world. This is the Blue Sona, sometimes also called the Yeti Studio. And there we go. Okay, because the other thing is that mic arms need to be adaptable, right? You don't usually set them and forget them one way, one time forever. You're kind of always moving them. They're very dynamic. So you don't want to just have kind of a nut and bolt that's latched in forever. You would almost want something better to hold this in, and then have like one of these knobs permanently here, so that way you can easily adjust it. That might be worth doing. But it looks like we need something to add more friction in here. Maybe this piece. So I have 2 ideas. The simplest would be to replace the plastic nut and bolt with a metal one, and just see if the stronger materials just hold it in better. Okay, so if I really crank down a metal screw, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so there's really not enough space in this hinge to add in, I don't know, a washer, a locking nut, something, maybe? So if this is my problem, this part actually feels great. This thing is incredibly sturdy, feels super durable, but maybe that's the problem. Maybe ABS wasn't the best choice for this because it doesn't flex in the way that maybe it needs to. I only have PLA and ABS, and I do have 1 spool of TPU. And so PLA, I feel like it's way too brittle. As soon as I tighten this down once or twice, I feel like it would just break. Would TPU be the way to go? Is that strong enough? It would definitely be flexible enough. The TPU for AMS that I have is not super soft. Like, it's not something you would make a phone case or something out of, but it's way softer than ABS, and it seems fairly durable. Like, it's, you know, it's doing a good job there. Maybe I should try reprinting this in TPU and then see if it works. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for this clamp to finish, and then I'm gonna print TPU, and then we will see what happens. So it took just over 2 hours to print the couple parts that I needed, and I think I've made some like minor progress. So first off, on the clamp for the desk mount, this actually works really well even though it is in ABS. Just because of the design of this one, it does have enough flex, and I can easily clip these together or use a nut and bolt to clip these together. So when it goes around this post, it can kind of lock down at the height that you want. This gives you a lot of variable height for the arm, which is cool. And then the arm will just rest on top of this. So in theory, I should be able to take this desk clamp, which so far I'm super impressed with this design. I think this worked really, really well. And then this has kind of like a sunken part on one end and not so much on the other. And so I'm gonna put the screw on this side. I can put this around the height that I want it, which for right now doesn't really matter. And then thread on the nut and use this little tool. And once that's on there, it's on there pretty good. Unfortunately, I printed two of these, or prints two of these, and one of them started to get a little bit stripped as I was trying to tighten down the arm. So I'm kind of, for the most part, I'm sort of down to one of these tools. Even ABS is still stripped. Now we need to see if we can figure out this hinge situation. So again, the original part, which is ABS, very not flexible. My new part in TPU, which I am not 100% sure if this was the answer, but it's significantly more flexible and soft. So I'm hoping this maybe can do a better job of, friction gripping. So we'll put the new part in here, and then it says to use 2 of these nuts to lock it down. So that's nuts. Kind of like how accidentally colorful this arm is turning out to be. So kind of like before, I'm tightening both of these down as basically as far as they can go. Even with that, there's still some give. And that's fine, that's what we want. This does need to rotate. It doesn't need to be as set in place as much as this part of the hinge does. And a lot of the success of this project hinges on this hinge right now. So now you can see here how the arm kind of just sits on this clamp and it won't go down. That feels super sturdy. So I decided instead to use a metal nut and bolt. So I have this nut. It has a locking washer in it, and then I'm gonna put a regular washer and a bolt, and we'll kind of see how that all works. So I crank that down fairly firmly. Let's see. It's sagging, but it's sagging more slowly. So that actually, okay, that's an improvement. Let's see if we can maybe just tighten it down more. Okay, that is looking better. It's very bouncy. It's kind of, but hey, look, that actually is working. It would make a lot more sense just to put like a wing nut here, something with a handle, so that way it's much easier to get a handle on it. But this seems to be holding for the time being. I'm like scared to touch it. Not an ideal thing with your mic arm. You wanna not be scared to touch your mic arm, but it is working. So let's see if we can actually run a cable through this. So I'm gonna do this the same way I do the Elgato. Plug the cable into the mic, and then we just run it through here. And there we go. We've got a wired up mic on my not Elgato mic arm. I'm hesitant about this. I don't know what's gonna happen when I need to actually make adjustments, but I guess the benefit of a 3D printed mic arm is that it also, you could just print the replacement parts, or what's probably more practical is you put it together, and then as you find weak parts or things that don't work for you, you can design or print or find replacements to add to that. So for example, I 100% think it was worth adding this metal 3/8 to 5/8 adapter here, because that's going to add a ton of durability if you want to change out microphones or mount different things on here. Because you could also use mic arms like this for small lights, small cameras, not just microphones. But there are bigger, more specialized parts like this. This is an Audio-Technica AT8459. This by itself is $50, so half of the price of the Elgato arm. But it's a super strong ball mount that then gives you all kinds of versatility. So you see it has 5/8 here, 5/8 here. What I could do is put that here, and then that's going to give me even more strength and versatility than the default arm that's here. That could make sense for me to do here because I already own this. I don't know that I would say spend $50 on this to add it to your 3D printed mic arm. The other thing is this is very heavy. So we're already dealing with some weight issues here. So this is kind of the extreme heavy duty version, but the simple 5/8 to 3/8 adapter, you can get those for a couple dollars, usually in a pack of like 2 or 4. That is totally worth it. And that just relies on the 3/8 print, which seemed to be a more reliable print than the 5/8. So I'm not using this 5/8 print. I ended up with an extra screw and an extra nut because I replaced those ones. But I am curious how this mic arm actually works. Yes, it's holding the microphone, but does it transfer sound? Like, how does it actually work? So now you're listening to me on the Blue Sona, which is the microphone attached to this mic arm. I am noticing some interesting looking sagging happening over here. But the reason I wanted to do this, obviously the microphone is going to work, but anytime you have your mic attached to anything or you're holding it, you then run the risk of handling noise. So here is me knocking on this, knocking on that, knocking on the table. Honestly, we should compare it with the Elgato in a second, but I feel like this is actually better than the Elgato, maybe because the plastic is absorbing some of the sound more. I feel like it's doing a better job at kind of being, like its own shock mount, sort of just built into the 3D design. And now I have this move to the Elgato. So we'll do some back-to-back handling noise. I'll like edit between me tapping on the mic arm on both and tapping on the table on both. So tapping on the printed one, tapping on the table with the Elgato, tapping on the table with the printed one. To my ears, they sound pretty similar, but if I had to pick one, I would actually say that the 3D printed arm does a better job at rejecting handling noise and just sort of getting out of the way in terms of that kind of distracting stuff that can happen while you record, which is, that's a cool surprise. And that has to just be because the plastic is soft and it's absorbing all of those movements and things. So I'm glad that this actually works, but kind of going back to the question of, is it worth it? This is we came out to $17 plus the cost of some magnets and I guess one metal screw. And this is $100 and then you're just done. You don't have to get anything else. It's a fun project. If you have a lightweight microphone, I mean, this one's not that heavy, but if you have a really lightweight microphone, it'll probably be easier to use. But I really feel like this hinge right here is the weak point. And that is something, not just in terms of stability, making sure that the mic doesn't go all over the place, but also ease of adjustability. Now that I have this locked in, I'm like scared to, I'm scared to change it again because I don't want to mess it up. But also it's a pain because I don't have an easy way to just twist a thing and tighten it. So that's something that I think could be really fun to kind of play with. I love the customization of this, that you can, of course, it's 3D printing. You can use different colors. You can use different materials. I intended for mine to be black and blue, but I actually really like this pop of green here. That's the only TPU that I had. And then the pink mic cable. So I kind of like the super colorful mic arm that it ended up being sort of as a nice surprise. But this area here, yeah, I'd love to try to design something. My design skills are not great. So if you have ideas, feel free to share those with me. I did also, not to just shamelessly self-promote things, but I did just open up a Discord server, which has a 3D printing section in it. So it could be an easy way to share files if you want to do that. You don't have to, but it's just an option. If you're like, hey, I have the perfect fix for this and you want to send it, I would love to try it out. This is really fun. And I have to say, the part that I cared about the least, which was the desk clamp, is probably the part I'm most impressed with. This thing is very sturdy. It's a really clever design, and it just works incredibly well. So I don't think that this is going to replace traditionally manufactured mic arms anytime soon, but it is very cool. If you need a mic arm, or you just want a fun project, or you spent all your money on a 3D printer and now you're on a budget, it is possible to make your own mic arm, and with a few minor adjustments, it can be really usable and really practical.